Okay, a pleasant good morning, honorable political leader and leader, my parliamentary colleagues, and this morning I'm joined by MP Richard Sicharan, MP for Caroni East, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen who are joining us on this morning, Trinidad and Tobago's opposition Sunday media briefing titled The PNM Failure in the Health and Agriculture Sector here in Trinidad and Tobago. This morning, I will be addressing issues in the agriculture sector, and we will start off our media briefing this morning with my colleague, the MP for Caroni East, Dr. Richard Sicharan, who will address the failure of this government in the health sector. So I hand you all over to MP Sicharan.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our opposition Sunday morning press briefing. I would like to thank my very hard-working colleague, the Member of Parliament for Kuba North, and the Shadow Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Ravi Ratiram, for such a warm introduction. I would like to begin by sending our prayers to those in peril due to the devastating earthquake in Morocco, and our prayers go out to all the souls there. Today, I will be focusing on developments within the health sector and Minister Dayal Singh's continued failure to provide quality health care to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, despite billions of dollars being under his purview over the last 8 years. Firstly, I'll begin with a question on notice answered by the Minister in Parliament in our last sitting on Friday, the 8th of September, on a cardiac catheterization laboratory to be built at the San Fernando General Hospital. Then I will move to a special report of the Auditor General on a resilient national public health system between the years 2016 and 2021. Also,
colleagues, and this morning I'm joined
of this year in Parliament to play games with the public once more as he teases a cat lab for the people of San Fernando for the third consecutive year. In July 2019, Minister Dayal Singh made a somber forecast. He said if we do not act now with vigor, commitment, and with robust response, we will not be able to build enough hospitals to keep pace with the country's growing NCD epidemic. So Minister Dayal Singh was speaking at the launch of the Trinidad and Tobago Global Hearts Initiative as part of a global outreach program to reduce premature death and disabilities from heart disease. So Minister Dayal Singh was pellucidly clear of the prevalence of severe heart disease in our population. In fact, and it has been reported in the press, that Prime Minister Keith Rowley underwent an angiogram procedure and angioplasty in January of 2021. The Prime Minister was able to be stented and avoid the consequences of whatever his medical condition may have been at the time. He was able to receive first world treatment and a very high level of standard of care, but that cannot be said for many of our patients in South Trinidad. More empathy was expected from Prime Minister Keith Rowley as someone who had required this treatment in an emergency situation in the past and was able to get it in our capital city in a very, very short space of time. According to the World Health Organization, the leading cause of death in Trinidad and Tobago is heart disease. The condition, also known as coronary heart disease, causes roughly 106 deaths per 100,000 persons in the population. In 2020, UDICOT put out a request for proposals to provide, design, construct, and equip services for the establishment of a cardiac catheterization laboratory and supporting services on the 3rd floor above the accident and emergency facility at the San Fernando General Hospital. The area identified was a vacant floor, roughly 1,400 square feet, 14,000 square feet above level 3 of the San Fernando General Hospital. The specifications included a procedure room, a control room, 4 doctors' offices, an imaging processing room, a conference room, a patient prep room, a recovery room, and a biomedical service room. The plan was to construct a biplane catheterization lab at the San Fernando General Hospital that would contribute and add greater capacity to our public health sector. And this was since 2020. We are currently in 2023. At the time, many prominent doctors gave thumbs up for this proposal. Former medical director at the San Fernando General Hospital, Dr. Anand Chattagoon, said at the time it was a great idea. And he said that it was in the pipeline for many, many years, for some time. And it would be an excellent idea for San Fernando because there's a lot of heart disease in that city. He added it would benefit the population of roughly 600,000 persons served by the Southwest Regional Health Authority. He also went on to say, you must take into consideration that an angiogram is a procedure that roughly costs in excess of $10,000 privately, and the angioplasty can cost many tens of thousands of dollars more depending on the number of blockages. At the same time in 2020, Dr. Ronald Henry, a prominent interventional cardiologist, said that one of the main issues persons have is accessing advanced cardiac care. And many persons cannot do it privately, and thus it must be done through a public institution. He said that there has generally been a long waiting list for people to have angiograms done, and he said that it made sense to increase the capacity in our public healthcare service. Also at the time, past president of the Caribbean Cardiac Society, Dr. Praveen Ramutas, said the benefits of doing an angioplasty are very, very beneficial to someone if they do it within 90 minutes of getting a heart attack. He said that a lot of lives could be saved as the damage done to the heart can be greatly reduced. According to Dr. Ramuta, it would go a very long way in making Trinidad a first world medical country. He said the proper implementation of such a system would decrease the duration of time persons would spend in the hospital, hence saving dollars, increasing the number of survivors, and also increasing the return of productive members of society back to work, and thus huge economic benefits. My friends, these persons were not misguided, having said these things in 2020, because the public, as well as these prominent doctors, had every reason to believe a cath lab was going to be built in or around fiscal year 2020. In the 2020 Public Sector Investment Programs booklet, funds totaling 70 million TT dollars were allocated under the Physical Investment Program for priority works to be done to upgrade the electrical system at the San Fernando General Hospital, as well as the creation of a cardiac catheterization lab at the hospital. In 2020, during the budget debate, Minister of Health Terence Dialsingh said that tenders and packages were open and were being evaluated for the cardiac lab in the San Fernando General Hospital. That was in 2021 budget debate. In the 2022 Social Sector Investment Programs booklet, the construction of a catheterization lab was mentioned, and it was said that it would see improved care and patient care capacity in the conduct of cardiac procedures in the Southwest Regional Health Authority. To date, nothing has been done. Nothing has been done, and we can expect nothing to be done under Minister Dialsingh. Minister Dialsingh's only achievement to date has been as a serial failure. Promises never materialized. We give comfort to the citizens that change is on the horizon. Minister Dialsingh's time is coming to an end, and as day follows night, the UNC will return to power, and Kamla Prasad Bisesa will build the cardiac catheterization lab at the San Fernando General Hospital. But it does not end there. The San Fernando General Hospital did get a mega project at that time. A parking garage was built, costing in excess of $100 million. The cardiac cath lab has been forgotten, with the priority given to this mega project to park cars. I am calling on Minister Dialsingh to build the cardiac catheterization lab at the San Fernando General Hospital in this fiscal year. You must do your job, Minister Dialsingh. As I was saying, the PNM gave citizens in South Trinidad a spanking new parking garage. UDCOT, the authority tasked with building the cath lab, for reasons unknown to us, turned their attention into building the San Fernando Parkade. This car park initially cost $118 million, but was eventually built for $133 million. UDCOT Deputy Chairman, Ms. Jacqueline Farrell, said by cabinet mandate, UDCOT was given the responsibility to finance, design, construct, operate, and maintain this new multi-story car park on the compound of the San Fernando General Hospital to alleviate the severe shortage in parking spaces in that area. The new car park has spaces for over 1,000 cars, elevators, a wireless cash payment system, security, and video surveillance. In fact, the Southwest Regional Health Authority Deputy Chairman, Ms. Valerie Alain Rollins, described the signing to construct this new car park as a signal event, which has been long awaited. She went on to say this is a step in the right direction. As I said before, the estimated cost of this 8-story car park was $118 million, and the scheduled completion date was the 4th of April 2022. The San Fernando Parkade eventually was built with 9 stories for $132 million and was opened on 30th of August 2023, over budget and over time. Minister Dialsingh said at the opening of this car park that the previously free car park at the back of the hospital was no longer available to the public. Instead, they would be directed to the parkade, and it would carry a cost of $8 per hour. So patients attending the San Fernando General Hospital now have the pleasure of paying to park at the parkade to access healthcare at the hospital. Shame on you, Minister Dialsingh, and shame on you, UDCOT. It is plain to see Prime Minister's Rowley priority was not the cardiac cath lab for 600,000 citizens, but this 9-story car park, which came in over budget and over 1 year late. During the Kamla Prasad Bisesa administration, the focus was on health, as in many other sectors, with UDCOT mandated to build the Cuba Hospital and the San Fernando Teaching Hospital, which were all built on time. Minister Dialsingh's incompetence does not end there. I will now move to a report that was laid in Parliament in June of 2023. On numerous occasions, I would have spoken to you all about the Simonga report, But today I will discuss a new Auditor General's special report that we now have access to. On the 5th of June 2023, a special report of the Auditor General of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago was laid in the House of Representatives, named Contributing Towards a Strong and Resilient Public Health System between the years of 2016 and 2021. And it's based on our country's ability to detect, to reduce the risk of, and to manage a national or a global health crisis. And this is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal Target 3D. The Auditor General's special report was done under the authority of the World Health Organization, along with the Ministry of Planning and Development and the Ministry of Health. It utilized contributions from the Minister of Health, as well as the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health, the Chief Medical Officer, the staff of the Regional Health Authorities, the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management, the Airports Authority, as well as the Trinidad and Tobago Registered Nurses Association, and the PAHO representative in Trinidad and Tobago. And it makes for quite interesting reading, to put it mildly. Firstly, on the report, the Auditor General said that we currently have a ratio of 1 doctor, nurse, and midwife per 1,000 persons in Trinidad and Tobago. The World Health Organization's recommendation is 4 doctors, nurses, and midwives per 1,000 persons in the population. So according to the World Health Organization, we are significantly undermanned in our nation's hospitals and health centers, and thus we are unable to provide a very high level of patient care when compared to other countries around the world. Remember, according to COVID-19, which was a great equalizer and a great mechanism to compare health systems around the world, we were ranked 172 out of 195 countries in the world. The Auditor General's report also went on to say, out of approximately 17,682 healthcare positions in Trinidad and Tobago, 6,647, or 37%, were vacant as of the end of 2021. Almost 40% of positions were vacant, building new hospitals, but no jobs for young unemployed doctors and healthcare professionals in Trinidad and Tobago. Secondly, the report went on to state the lack of medical equipment in our health facilities. It said that our doctors were concerned about their ability to diagnose patients presenting for care. They did a survey. 65% of doctors stated that there was inadequate access to medical equipment to diagnose and treat patients. Representatives from health associations as well as private health institutions expressed concerns over delays in administering diagnostic treatment in our public healthcare facilities. As you may know, most of our doctors are bound by non-disclosure agreements, and this is the closest that we have gotten into a confirmation of negligence by the regional health authorities. Between the years of 2016 to 2021, when this report was assessing, $25.66 billion were budgeted for the Ministry of Health. So where has the money gone? Why are our hospitals lacking equipment according to World Health Organization? Minister Dialsing must account for this. Thirdly, unintegrated and underutilized IT systems. The Auditor General's report stated that there is no integration of our IT systems and there is no interface of systems with the Ministry of Health. There are information technology systems in use at the Ministry of Health and at the regional health authorities, but there was no integration of IT systems across the regional health authorities to facilitate the ease of data sharing for decision making, nor interface of these systems with the Ministry of Health. So if you go to one health center in Toko and you go to another in Chagonas, there's no mechanism whereby the doctors could easily share the information digitally. The use of IT for the RHAs has been limited to financial records, patient registration, and pharmaceutical functions. And the full functionality of these programs are not in use and not being utilized. We also have the issue of the Trinidad and Tobago Registered Nurses Association not being consulted during COVID-19. And the Auditor General report made special mention of this. According to the report, the TTRNA was not included in any decisions concerning COVID-19. And this is contrary to other countries around the world, where the input of senior nurses was used to optimize equipment and resources at the height of the pandemic. As you know, in some cases, we had very limited supply of ventilators, and the input of these senior nurses would have helped to alleviate the situation. And these nurses have endured so much under Minister Dialsingh. It was also mentioned in this report that the TTRNA was refused health insurance and hazard allowances during the pandemic, which is the norm in most World Health Organization countries. Not in this report, but as a side note, Tobago is the only regional health authority that has met its staff figures in terms of the number of nurses employed in the authority. And this was most apparent during the pandemic, when one nurse had to do the job of perhaps 2 and 3 nurses. Our nation's shortcomings have been highlighted in the 2020 State of the World Nursing Report, which analyzes data in 191 countries, including Trinidad and Tobago. And for countries such as ours that are unable to retain their best nurses, the report advised that we should consider improving salaries and working conditions, creating professional development opportunities, and allowing nurses to work to the full scope of their training. President of the TTRNA, Edie Stewart, is on record of saying nurses are working on 2023 salaries, and because of this, many have left and gone abroad to seek employment. Currently, nurses' salaries are among the lowest in the public healthcare sector, and the disrespect continues because many nurses are only given short-term contracts, and thus they are unable to access loans to buy cars or perhaps a mortgage for a house. And these short-term contracts create great uncertainty and depress the morale of our very, very hard-working nurses who have exposed themselves to great risk during COVID-19. And there are over 3,400 of these nurses working under these conditions. The report also made mention of the physical and mental health of our healthcare workers and indicated that our doctors and nurses as of 2021, the end of 2021, were burnt out, having been forced to work extra hours and having to give up their vacation leave. Also mentioned were unpaid overtime, job insecurity, poor meals, lack of transport, and no childcare support, and very poor working conditions. $25.6 billion Minister Dialsingh had access to between these years, 2016 and 2021. And this is what the report, this is what his ministry, this is what the Ministry of Planning had to say about his performance. Nurses are just fed up with the working conditions in this country. They are fed up with Minister Dialsingh and his disrespect to their profession. And quite interestingly, the report went on to speak about long wait times and the postponement of surgeries. It said that 64% of patients had a longer waiting time than normal during the COVID-19 pandemic. 64% of patients, and 63% said that there was frequent postponement of elective surgeries and medical appointments during the pandemic. So this finally puts to rest that there was a parallel healthcare system. How can there be a parallel healthcare system if persons without COVID-19 could not get their surgeries and could not get their doctor's appointments on time? There was no parallel healthcare system. doctors were simply transferred to a COVID-19 facility to the detriment of the hospital or the health facility that they were from. Parallel healthcare was another P&M gimmick. The report went on to give a number of recommendations to the Ministry of Health and indirectly to Minister Dayal Singh. It said, among them, the regional health authorities should put measures in place to fill vacancies for healthcare workers to mitigate underlying issues causing staff shortages in the health sector. It also went on to say measures should aim to address issues such as lack of job security, migration of health staff due to better salaries and working conditions, unpaid compensation, and the lack of motivation and incentives. The Ministry of Health should also put in mechanisms in place for a macro human resource health plan in consultation with the beneficiaries and health providers that would have to utilize this plan. The ministry should also put in place mechanisms to integrate its IT systems for public service delivery and public health risks. Resources in this area should also be optimized to ensure that there is no underutilization of our very expensive IT systems. It also went on to say the government should consider revision of all health legislation up to a very high standard to be aligned to international standards, and that the Ministry of Health should document the lessons that they have learned from our recent health shocks, as this would assist in identifying gaps and shortcomings and thus lead to best practice. In conclusion, we can see that the health sector has many issues going into the budget, and Minister Dayal Singh has presided over billions and billions of taxpayers' dollars with serious flaws in our health system. Some are small, but some are not so small. Myself and my fellow colleagues in the House of Representatives, as well as those in the Senate, as well as our political leader Kamla Persad-Bissessar, will endeavor to hold the government to account and to allow the citizens of this country to see value for their tax dollars. I thank you all, and I will now give the camera to our Honorable MP, Ravi Ratiram.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rishad Sicharan, for those enlightening words that you have shared with us this morning. Once again, a pleasant good morning to our honorable political leader and leader of the opposition, my parliamentary colleagues, members of the media who are joining us here this morning, and those of you who are joining us live on the various social media platforms. This morning I am going to address the issues affecting the agriculture sector and the failure of this government to address those issues. Agriculture plays a multifaceted role in Trinidad and Tobago, contributing to our nation's economy, food security, rural development, and cultural heritage. It is of paramount importance to us, supporting economic development, environmental sustainability, and the overall well-being of our society. Across the region, agriculture has been established as a major developmental pillar in the diversification of the country's economy, creating job opportunities and acting as a function of crime prevention. However, here in Trinidad and Tobago, under this incompetent, uncaring Rowley administration, the agriculture sector has been neglected, abandoned, and has now collapsed. The poor management of the Ministry of Agriculture can easily be seen by walking just 100 meters north of my Couva North constituency office to the Ministry of Agriculture, Caroni County office. And I want to encourage members of the media to visit that Caroni County office or any other county office and see, hear, or feel for themselves what members of staff are being forced to go through on a daily basis. Firstly, the air-conditioned units are non-functional, and members of staff have been complaining of the poor ventilation and hot environment they have to operate operate under. Just last week, 2 members of staff fell sick as a result of the heat and the poor ventilation at this county office. It was brought to my attention that last Thursday and Friday, staff walked off the job at the St. Andrews St. David El Reposo station in Sangre Grande. These offices have been lacking basic supplies. No ink, no toner. Earlier in the year, staff had to bring their own toilet paper. Up till recently, staff had to purchase cleaning supplies out of their own pockets to be able to have the office in a clean and a hygiene-friendly environment. These county offices are supposed to provide support to farmers with their registrations and the processing of subsidies. I understand that over $6 million in subsidies are being owed to farmers, and that figure is just in the North region. Farmers have been complaining that they have not received any subsidies during this financial year. Other major issues affecting farmers that they have been complaining about is that of the giant African snail. After the Minister of Finance boasted of a $3 million allocation set aside to deal with the eradication of the giant African snail, and a $5 per kilogram bounty program was launched by the Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, it is clear that both have collapsed, and now the snail is moving faster than the PNM ministers. The giant African snail are moving faster than the failed PNM ministers and have been a serious threat to crop cultivation for many farmers. Last year, September, the opposition asked the minister in the Ministry of Agriculture, when will the snail bait be available through the ministry to assist farmers in the eradication of this pest? Minister Avinash Singh indicated that as soon as we get clearance, and I want to quote the minister, Minister Avinash Singh indicated, and I quote, as soon as we get clearance from the board, this bait will be incorporated in our programs, end quote. That was last year, September. 1 year later, I am asking the Minister of Agriculture, where is the snail bait you have been working on? Stop working at a snail pace in the Ministry of Agriculture and get cracking. Get down to the job. These giant African snails are running across the entire country way faster than you can catch up. And they are creating havoc for our farmers and even citizens. Farmers are suffering from the infestation of the giant African snail. And you, Minister of Agriculture, continues to fail our farmers by providing no relief. Turning to another major issue where this government has failed our farmers is that of predial larceny. And this government's inability to resource and equip the predial larceny squad with the necessary tools and personnel needed to effectively carry out their function is causing a serious problem. When we look at the statement made in the Senate by the Minister of Agriculture at last year's budget debate, we are once more reminded that this government is one who cannot be trusted. Senator the Honorable Kazim Hussein, Minister of Agriculture, stated, and I quote, also, a big issue was the predial larceny squad. I asked for more money and we got money because we want to deal with predial larceny squad to ensure we have less pilferage and so on among the farmers, because these farmers work very hard. And I also want to say that we have an all-government approach where we are going to include the TTPS and the municipal police, because I spoke to the Minister of Local Government already and the Minister of National Security, where there would be a combined effort, end quote. Ladies and gentlemen, the only combined effort that the predial larceny squad received under this government was the combining of the South and Central Predial Larceny Unit into one unit, which is now located at Carson Field. The entire South Predial Larceny Unit from Craignish has collapsed. shut down by this Rowley administration. Typical PNM style. In this year's budget, $9 million were allocated to provision of infrastructure for the pre-deal larceny squad under the development program of the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries. And if we go to the estimate of development program expenditure, page 145, project 150, we will see that provision of infrastructure for pre-deal larceny squad, $9,050,000 right here, quoting from government document. 1 year later, the question now is, where has the money gone? Where the money gone? The pre-deal larceny unit building in Carson Field is in a dilapidated state. The interior walls are dirty. The perimeter fence is broken down. The doors are flimsy. And this is a location where firearms are stored. This is a serious issue, brothers and sisters, especially with the high amount of crime happening in and around. There is no water pump connecting the one tank to the building's plumbing. When officers go out on a patrol and return to base to take a shower, if the water supply is locked off, the officers have to use a bucket and a cup to shower. Sometimes they have to fill a bucket to flush the toilet once the water has been locked off. Brothers and sisters, this is a serious issue. And once again we ask, where has that $9 million gone? Where the money gone? Imagine pre-deal larceny officers have to use a bucket and a cup in this 21st century, not even a pump connecting the tank to the plumbing system of the building. This is so sad, brothers and sisters. And in addition to these challenges, the location of the combined South and Central unit in Carson Field makes it practically impossible for the pre-deal larceny unit to patrol its designated land space. And this unit has to patrol from Felicity to Beach to Mayaro to Cedrus Icacus. And to top it off, their shift comprise only 3 to 4 constables per shift with just 2 or sometimes 1 working vehicle to patrol this entire land space. It makes it practically impossible for these pre-deal larceny officers to execute their responsibility, ladies and gentlemen. This is the sad state of affairs with the pre-deal larceny squad 1 year after the Minister of Agriculture, Senator Kazim Hussein, boasted in his budget presentation that the ministry had asked for more money and had gotten it. Now, in addition to the hardship the pre-deal larceny squad is seeing under the failed Rowley administration, farmers are having a more difficult time to recover after being victims of pre-deal larceny. One farmer said, "It is as though the criminals are now monitoring the price of their produce. When the price of the crop is low, the thieves do not come around. But as soon as the price goes up in the market, they are uncertain to harvest any produce before the thieves make way with it." This has become the norm in the agriculture sector, where the pre-deal larceny unit has found itself woefully under-resourced and undermanned in recent years. This unit, responsible for apprehending those engaged in the illegal act of pre-deal larceny, has seen a sharp decline in its effectiveness due to the reduction in staff and a lack of resource. These thefts deprive farmers of their hard-earned income. Farmers who are already grappling with unpredictable weather patterns, fluctuating market prices, and mounting production costs are left to bear the additional burden of frequent thefts. Thefts not just to the pilfering of crops and livestock, but it extends to irrigation system and various farm equipment. This relentless onslaught has left many farmers disheartened and desperate, often unable to recover from their losses. In light of the failing pre-deal larceny unit and the continued suffering of farmers, there is an urgent need for alternative measures to protect the interests of those who feed the nation, to protect the interests of our farmers who provide food security to our citizens. While our current penalties for predial larceny include fines and imprisonment, it's evident that this does not deter any criminals because of the predial larceny squad inability to patrol and to protect. We need a more realistic approach to protect our farmers and their livelihood. So I'm saying, let us empower our farmers. It's time to arm them with firearm users license, granting them both authority to protect their farms and the legal protection in doing so. By taking this bold step, we equip our farmers with the tools needed to protect their livelihood. They deserve nothing less than the right to do so, ladies and gentlemen. Hence, I call upon Commissioner Erla Christopher to issue licensed firearms to registered farmers through firearm users license, granting them the power to safeguard their produce and livestock. This is not a plea, it's a resounding demand for action, for change, and for justice for agriculture sector and the farming community. Our farmers are the lifeblood of our nation, and it's high time this government stand in solidarity with them. It is high time that this government stand in solidarity and give the farmers the respect that they deserve. The time for idle talk and toast have passed, and the time for decisive action is now. Commissioner Erla Christopher, the choice is yours. Stand with our farmers or sit back and watch them fall victim to the next criminal element of predial larceny yet to occur. The choice is clear and the solution lies in your hands. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to turn to the final issue this morning to touch on the Youth in Agriculture Homestead Program, a web of hypocrisy. I want to expose this web of hypocrisy that has engulfed our government, particularly Minister Foster Cummings. Now, let me state from the onset that we in the opposition support young people in productive pursuit. We support opportunities for the youth population in areas of sustainable development. But what we do not support is deception, dishonesty, and setting up persons to fail. While Trinidad and Tobago hardworking farmers struggle with skyrocketing prices for chemicals and fertilizers, predial larceny, crop destruction due to pests and flooding, the government parades an orientation program, Youth in Agriculture Homestead Program, under the guise of supporting our youth in farming. So let's be crystal clear about the state of agriculture in our nation. Our farmers are facing an unprecedented crisis. The exorbitant prices of chemicals and fertilizers have driven the cost of food production to unsustainable heights. Farmers are on the brink of collapse, and consumers are paying the price with every hike in production costs. I ask the question, what has the minister responsible for agriculture, Senator Kazim Hussein, done to alleviate this continuous plea? Nothing, ladies and gentlemen, absolutely nothing. Minister Hussein remains silent while our farmers bear the brunt of this crisis. Now, the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service, led by Minister Foster Cummings, created a program to orient 200 young people into the Youth in Agriculture Homestead Program. But where is the equity in this program? What has been the criteria in selecting the successful persons to participate in this program? Now, I know of at least 25 persons who applied for this program, all met the entry requirements, who were not selected. Let's look at the entry requirements. The requirements for the program are as follows. Persons must be between the ages of 18 to 35 years. Persons must be citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Persons must have a good certificate of character. Persons must have a passion and demonstrate an interest in agriculture. Persons must be willing to commit to a 2-year training program. Persons must be willing to operate sustainable homesteads on the lands allotted to contribute to national food security. That's the requirements here, taken off the ministry's website. However, I ask again, what has been the criteria in selecting the successful persons to participate in this program? I want to ask, what is Foster telling these youths on their orientation? Is he saying to them that after they work and sweat and cultivate their crops, that someone else is going to come to harvest their crops, and they should not feel depressed because that has become the norm under this government? That predial larceny affects everyone and this government is doing absolutely nothing about it? They claim to support youth in agriculture, but what about our existing struggling farmers who have toiled for years facing the same challenges our youth will inevitably confront? Let's be realistic. These 200 young men participating in this program will eventually join the rank of our farmers and face the same daunting challenges that have pushed our agriculture sector to the brink. They will grapple with the same issues that have crippled our farmers, the unaffordable cost of chemicals and fertilizer. How can they be expected to succeed when the very foundation of their farming efforts is marred by exorbitant prices set by the government's negligence? They will soon realize that feed shortages, just like those plaguing our current farmers, can threaten the livelihood of their livestock. What will Minister Hussein offer them in terms of support when they face the same crisis, when he is not offering anything at this point in time to existing farmers? Our youths will not be spared from the relentless onslaught of nature. They too will witness their hard-earned crops washed away by heavy rainfall, just like our experienced farmers who have suffered year after year without any assistance from this Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, where they have failed to clean our watercourses, they have failed to maintain our watercourses, and they have failed to come up with any innovative solution to avoid farmers from being flooded out. The plague of predial larceny, which has haunted our farmers for years, will not magically disappear for our youths. They will experience the same frustration and losses as our current farmers. Yet where is the government plan to protect them? Ladies and gentlemen, the government's Grand Orientation Program for youths in agriculture is nothing more than a facade. It is a puppy show of empty promises and hypocrisy while our farmers face dire circumstances. The youths are not immune to the challenges of the farming community in Trinidad and Tobago, and they deserve real solutions, not just photo ops and press releases. We call upon Minister Kazim Hussein and Minister Foster Cumming to stop the hypocrisy, acknowledge the struggles of our farmers, and take immediate action to address the pressing issues that threaten the future of agriculture in our nation. The youths are watching and they deserve better. And I say to you, Minister Kazim Hussein and Minister Foster Cummings, if you do not know how to address these issues, step aside and allow someone else to execute those responsibilities. You see, brothers and sisters, while we confront the issues facing the agriculture sector, the UNC is on the road to victory, and the UNC stands ready with a plan to bring about good governance to Trinidad and Tobago under the astute, compassionate leadership of our leader, the Honorable Kamla Persad Bissessa, the best Prime Minister that this country has ever had. The UNC, according to my colleague Dr. Rishad Sicharan, the UNC will return to power, and we demonstrated that after putting that sound flogging on the PNM in the local government election, where we have won that local government election, and within less than 23 months, we tell the citizens of this country, in less than 23 months, The general election is due, and we are ready to return good governance with the return of Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar as the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, where we will be bringing to the fore solutions to assist farmers and to assist the agricultural sector. We will be creating agricultural parks. We will be implementing an agricultural insurance protection program to assist farmers in areas of flooding, in areas of drought, in areas of pest, disease, fire, whether it is predial larceny or business interruption. This agricultural insurance protection system is going to be there to assist these farmers. We are going to invest into research and development and encouraging innovation in agricultural practices, using technology and commercializing new products. Ladies and gentlemen, the United National Congress will work with farmers and private sector to capitalize on global demand for non-traditional food crops, which offer lucrative export opportunities such as hot peppers and other crops. We will embark upon a national drainage upgrade and maintenance program, along with investing into retention ponds to alleviate floods in the rainy season and to provide irrigation solution and relief in the dry season to our farmers. I asked Minister Kazim Hussein, how many irrigation systems have you assisted farmers with? How many retention ponds have you assisted? And even a more simple issue I want to ask the minister, what about the agricultural access roads? You all have abandoned all agricultural access roads across the central and south Trinidad. The UNC government will embark upon a rehabilitation program of our agricultural access roads, and we will also empower the predial larceny unit, providing them with the necessary tools, equipment, and manpower to effectively patrol farming communities. Ladies and gentlemen, a UNC responsible government will provide the land tenure and regularize farmers with the necessary land use security to prevent them from having their crops further bulldozed by state agencies, like what we saw happening in Philly City, where farmers' crops was bulldozed by state agency, like what happened in Vega de Oropuch, where I had to visit there along with representatives from the Sangre Grande Regional Corporation to stop the LSA from bulldozing farmers' crops. We need to provide land tenure for our farmers. There are a lot more solutions and issues that the UNC will embark upon when we do form the next government of Trinidad and Tobago, but I am certain our leader will present many of these in her budget presentation very soon. So with that being said, I thank you all very much for joining us this morning. And now I ask if there are any questions from the media.
All right, MP Rajaram, I'll start with you just around different selected news. Among things that you identified and said during your address, you made a call on the top cop in the head of Christopher to issue firearm resource license to farmers and those among the farming population, right? Registered farmers. And you said it comes on the backdrop of the authorities' failure to address the issue of predial larceny. We are aware of that situation. As Shadow Agriculture Minister, how successful and how impactful do you think that move can be? And being the Shadow Agriculture Minister, do you have I'm sure you would have your ear on the ground. Is that a request being made by farmers and by those in the farming population?
Well, definitely, and thank you very much for that question. We call upon our farmers to stand their ground and to proceed in making the necessary application to the top cop to have this in train, because you may recall in the past that owners of land with a certain quantity of estate, they would have been resourced with firearms to protect their estates. However, as the older had passed on, the younger ones, they would have returned these firearms to the police station. And upon the returning of these firearms to the police station, we saw predial larceny creeping in. This is something that would have happened in the past. This is why during 2010 to 2015, the People's Partnership Administration put all the necessary steps in place for the establishment and the empowerment of a predial larceny unit to go out to patrol, to do what is necessary to avoid theft and pilferage of agricultural produce and livestock. However, over the last 8 years, farmers are crying out for help. Farmers are faced with their produce being taken away from them, their livestock. I spoke to one farmer who lost approximately 9 head of cattle from his farm. And this you are talking about somewhat close to $100,000, right? They have all that I have spoken to, farmers and fishermen, have been asking for this type of relief where the government cannot protect them. They are prepared to protect their livelihood, to protect their family, to protect their property. So this is why we have issued this call. This is something that came about in consulting with our farmers, and this is something that the UNC and our leader support for the issuance of licensed firearm for those who legally qualify for it. Of course, there will be the necessary safety training and protocols that they will have to embark upon in the receiving a firearm user's license. This is why we ask under the FUL that the necessary programs and trainings are taken into consideration so that those who are the holders of the FUL will understand that while they have the right to protect themselves, there also comes a responsibility with that right that they will have to uphold and execute that safety responsibility.
In the next coming days, perhaps weeks, we're also expecting to see increased temperatures, experience increased temperatures. We've also been grappling with issues of water shortage, persons not being able to access, and this is not just those in the farming population, but the general public unable to access steady and regular water supply. But dialing back to the farming population, do you think there needs to be a more direct government role, government involvement to really provide some sort of assistance, some sort of relief to farmers who are at risk of losing perhaps produce and even livestock, given the increase in temperatures and a lack of water?
Of course, there is a direct correlation in what you are speaking of. And I make reference to a presentation that was made by the chairman of the Penal Debe Regional Corporation, Chairman Dipti, where he made reference to the dams in Penal. He made reference to the available areas for retention ponds, etc., that those things can be used to assist livestock with a proper water supply, because in that area, in that community, we have a lot of livestock farmers who they themselves have not been receiving a proper supply of water for their own family, and they have to purchase water for their family. And right about now, that is what is happening. Farmers now have to purchase water to support their livestock. So definitely during this time where we are seeing the water shortage, and you know, it's really a sad state of affairs of what is happening in this country under that Ministry of Public Utilities, because we have a minister who appears to be a clonger. The Minister of Public Utilities is clonging all of us in Trinidad and Tobago, because when we had the MPs from Central Trinidad and the chairman of the different regional corporations coming together, representing our constituents, representing our burgesses, and highlighting the problems and the challenges that citizens are facing for water supply, the flippant response we got from this clong is that the ministers, that the MPs look well dressed, as though they took a good shower, they took a good bath, and they are clients of Ministry of Public Utilities. And he failed to address the significant and the substantive issues. And I applaud the MP for Princess Tong, our Shadow Minister of Public Utilities, MP Barry Padarat, in continuing championing this cause for our citizens, because up to yesterday, I received calls from persons in John Passad, in my constituency, in Apu settlement inside Orangefield Road, where I lobbied the Minister of Public Utilities for upgrading the WASA infrastructure, the lines. Now that the lines have finally been upgraded after 2.5 years, the pressure of the water is just not sufficient to reach into the top of the tank, to fill the tanks. So while there is a schedule that was put out by WASA, where some places receive water from midnight to 5 in the morning, so they have to get up during those wee hours of the morning to see if they could fill a bucket, a gallon, a barrel, because the water pressure is not reaching to the tanks. This Minister of Public Utilities continued to clog around and fool around. And the Prime Minister said he selected someone who knew nothing about WASA to put as the Minister of WASA. That's what the Prime Minister said, put him as the Minister of WASA. It seems as though the Prime Minister and the Minister of Public Utilities are both clonging the citizen of this country. And that has to stop. We need them to accept the responsibility that comes with their office. And if they cannot, step aside and let someone else do it.
My final question to Mr. Rajaram. What's your position? It's been just over a year since we had the Agri-Investment Forum on Expo. That was touted to transform the agriculture sector through innovation. It was aimed at reducing the regional food import by 25% in 2025. Where are we now? We're 2 years away from 2025. Where are we when it comes to that forum on Expo?
So thank you also for that question. And it's really a sad state of affairs after that $8 million Papi show that was hosted here with that Agro Forum, that absolutely nothing came out of that for the farming community and for the agriculture sector. That forum was supposed to repeat itself in August month, and it was postponed to a date to be fixed. It did not happen. Even though we had a commitment that it will be an annual event in going forward, it did not happen. And we wonder, is it because the Honorable President of Guyana is not visiting or was not going to visit for the Agro Forum? That is why the hype would have died out and no one would have paid the necessary attention to these clowns that we have in office, these jokers, these incompetent cabinet ministers that we have here. The thing about it is that what we see happening in the agriculture sector under this Rowley-led failed PNM administration from 2015 to last year, the contribution of agriculture to the GDP in this country has fallen by 200 million over the last 8 years. And if we go to the central bank statistic, we will see that our contribution for agriculture to GDP has fallen by 200 million, and it continues to fall because farmers are being frustrated, farmers are being driven out of the sector because of the challenges and because of the mismanagement by these ministers to address simple issues like cleaning of watercourses, agricultural access roads, predial larceny, price of chemicals, etc. And something must happen, something has to happen. Hosting another 8 million Papi Show Agro Forum is not going to solve the problems facing the agriculture sector. But what is going to face is with the ministers take a page out of the UNC's People's Partnership Performance from 2010 to 2015 and execute some of those projects and programs. And if they cannot execute those programs or projects, they can easily step aside, call the general election, and the people will decide who they want to execute those responsibilities.
Thank you, Chair. And Dr. Citroen, just one question for you. So, ahead of the new parliamentary session, which begins tomorrow, what are your expectations going forward?
Well, we wait and see. Hopefully, with regards to health, Minister Dayal Singh would address a number of these issues that were raised in the special report by the Auditor General. And many of them are pertinent issues, being hospitals and health centers being undermanned, the lack of diagnostic equipment for many doctors. As you remember, during COVID-19, we had a situation where we had one doctor, one nurse to 20 or 30 patients on the ward, as well as one ICU nurse to at least 6 ICU patients. And we had an instance where one doctor became a whistleblower to a news station and said that there was one oxygen saturation monitor for 60 patients on the ward. Now, there's no way you could test someone's oxygen, 60 persons' oxygen with one oxygen saturation monitor. So persons would have died due to the lack of healthcare professionals at that point in time, as well as due to the lack of equipment. So you don't know who's critical, who is going hypoxic, who is lacking oxygen, and to deal with them in an urgent and a manner. So these are some instances that I would like the minister to address. We have the issues of nurses being on short-term contracts. We have the issues of many of them not having insurance. And the doctors are under their non-disclosure agreements. So many of them can't raise these matters openly. So it's up to us as the representatives in Parliament to raise a number of these issues And hopefully Minister Dial Singh would address, because this report has been laid in Parliament, it's open there for everyone to see. It was done by the Ministry of Health as well as the Ministry of Planning in conjunction with the World Health Organization. So he has this information, he has a roadmap of what needs to be done, and I am looking forward to see what are his plans in this fiscal year going forward, because there are many projects that would have to be implemented, as well as his promise for the third consecutive year for a cath lab for the people of the southern part of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you.
I have some questions here from TV6, first four. MP,
Sure.
Right. So, the questions on it, it's a series of questions for you. For what period are the subsidies that you were talking about outstanding? And is there a standard amount per farmer? And how many farmers are we talking about?
So the information presented was for the period for this financial year. We are talking about October 2022 to present. No subsidies have been paid out through these county offices. We're talking about, just in North alone, we have approximately 21,000 farmers registered in the north of Trinidad. And that would be County Caroni, County St. Andrews, St. David, St. George's. And then in the south, we have an average, a little less, around 17,000 farmers registered. We may have like about 5,000 in the north, around 4,000 in the south of unregistered farmers. However, the subsidies are for registered farmers. And we are talking about figures in excess of $6 million being due to be paid out. In February 2023, a payment was received by some farmers, but that was for September and before 2022. So that would have been for the previous fiscal term. But for this fiscal term and going forward, the information that has reached to us is that these farmers have not received any subsidy payments.
Like I said, there are a lot of questions for you.
That's okay.
The other one is, how frequently are acts of predial larceny occurring, and which areas are most impacted? Any data on reports to the police?
Thank you for that question. And there have been countless reports of predial larceny that our central and south unit have been receiving in areas, mainly areas like Kunopia. Kunopia is one of the main areas where we have a high occurrence of predial larceny. Faizabad, Barakpur is another area of reports that used to get support from the Cregnish office. But since they have shut down this office in Cregnish, the Barakpur farmers, they themselves came together and provided help for the predial larceny unit to get the vehicle up and working in South when they were assigned to that Cregnish office. And that has been moved now to the office in Carson Field. Karapo, Tableland, right in the constituency of Couva North, in Korea Village and in Chananago, we have a lot of reports, countless number of reports have been made to the predial larceny unit. They also make report to the police at the Freeport Police Station within my constituency. I liaise very closely with the Freeport Police Station, and reports have been made, but of course and also reports are attempted to be made at the county office next door in Chase Village. But in Chase Village, they direct them to the predial larceny office in Carson Field, because that is where the report is supposed to be properly captured. What has been said to me by the officers of the predial larceny unit is that there is a direct correlation with patrol and the activity of predial larceny. That when they had patrolled the areas in the past, there was a low figure in terms of the report of predial larceny's occurrence. But as soon as they have slowed down in their patrols, because again, lack of manpower, lack of vehicles, there has been an increase in the number of pedial larceny occurrence. And these patrols, some of it has happened only like daylight when the place is normal temperature. Because if rain is falling, the vehicle in Carsonfield, they have no air condition working in that vehicle. So the vehicle fogs up if it is that the rain is falling. If they go out in the night with no air condition working, the vehicle fogs up, etc. If rain is falling, it's serious problems to go out on any of these reports and these calls. So the pedial larceny unit is overwhelmed at this point in time with reports, and it is something that we are hoping we can see some quick and swift relief.
All right, some more from TV6 here. In the last budget, the Prime Minister had stated that agriculture is primarily a private sector initiative, and the government simply supports. Does the opposition support this stance?
Oh, definitely not. Remember, the same Prime Minister once upon a time said we do not have sufficient land for agriculture here in Trinidad and Tobago. And with these 200 youth in agriculture, all of a sudden we get an additional 400 acres of land to give out to the youth in agriculture homestead program. This Prime Minister has clearly demonstrated that he cannot be trusted. When he says move to the left, you should run to the right. And when he says move to the right, you should duck for cover. This Prime Minister clearly cannot be trusted. He's the same man who said that we were not closing down Petrotrin and then all must go. So I will issue a call to citizens of this country to stop listening to that fella, because you don't know if he's speaking from the right or the left of his mouth. He cannot be trusted.
And the last one for you from TV6, it says, he mentioned earlier, well, meaning yourself, you had mentioned earlier that the building that houses the pedial larceny unit is derelict and that firearms are being kept there. Have there been any incidents where firearms or ammunition have gone missing, etc.?
Well, I said dilapidated, not derelict. Okay. Dilapidated. However, there has not been any information of such coming to my attention. I'm sure if it is that, further investigation is conducted, we may be privy to more information. However, so far no information came to my attention. But what is of importance is that there is firearm at the location. There's bulletproof vests stored at the location. There's firearms at the location. There's uniforms at the location, and we have a fence that is broken down. The building is exposed. The doors are flimsy. You can just push the door and it will open on you. And it is not safe. When you have 3 officers on a shift, the pedial larceny officers' lives are at risk by having them in that building. Because if it is they go out on a patrol, how many officers are left at that building to man the equipment and the resources of the pedial larceny unit? So this government, due to their negligence and incompetence and mismanagement, is placing pedial larceny officers' lives at risk. And that is the issue there at hand.
One final question for the speaker. Internationally, there has been talk during the COVID pandemic about excess mortality in various countries, and from what you were talking about with the collapse of the parallel healthcare system, does that have, or that there was no parallel healthcare system, that it was a P&M gimmick? Do you believe that that has contributed to any excess mortality in Trinidad and Tobago?
Definitely. As I said before, the special auditor's report shows that there was in fact no parallel healthcare system. Doctors were simply transferred from one institution to the detriment of that institution to a COVID-19 facility. And in doing so, in many cases, the previous institution, the non-COVID-19 facility, was on demand. And in many cases, we have seen the COVID-19 facilities were also on demand as well. Remember, we have a situation where we have, by last estimate, hundreds of young doctors that recently graduated that have been unemployed during that time. During one of the mid-year reviews, the Minister of Finance allocated funds for a number of these doctors to get positions temporarily. In some cases, they were given very, very short contracts, like 3 months. And many of them have not been renewed. And it was intended that these young doctors would be sent out to the healthcare system network to educate the population on NCDs and NCD prevention, but that has not been done. So we have a situation where we have unmanned hospitals, unmanned health facilities during the COVID-19 pandemic. And yes, that would have greatly contributed to excess mortality due to COVID-19 during that time. And as I said, we did have a whistleblower, and he reported that he alone at the time, December, I think 2022 or 2021, I'm not sure, I can't remember exactly, he was seeing up to 60 patients, in charge of 60 patients in one shift. And there's no way one doctor would be able to manage medically 60 ill patients, and persons would have passed due to the lack of care, due to the lack of manpower, due to the lack of equipment monitoring these persons. As we have seen in many international reports, on CNN, a COVID-19 patient has one oxygen saturation monitor per patient. And here we have a case where the young doctor was saying there's one oxygen saturation monitor for 60 patients. So there's obviously, we would have lost patients that did not have to be lost. And that is my point. We made many, many mistakes during COVID-19, many mistakes that we did not have to make. And it was due to our management style and a lack of leadership by Minister Dayal Singh at the time. And I had released many, many statements during that time when it was ongoing.
Well, thank you. I have no more questions.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Okay, folks, so we want to thank all of you for joining us this morning. We want to say a thank you to the members of the media who have participated in this morning's briefing, and a special thank you to the Leader of the Opposition for affording us this opportunity to speak with the population out there, to highlight the issues affecting the agriculture and the health sector and the failure of this government. We say to our citizens, continue to stand your ground, continue to secure your homes, your family, your community. The United National Congress is on the road to victory, and in less than 23 months, we are going to have a general election in this country, and we stand ready to bring about good governance with our leader, Honorable Kamla Prasad Bisesa, as our next Prime Minister. So thank you very much, and we will keep in touch.